Have you ever felt anxious, restless, or even exhausted after watching the news? You're not alone. The modern news cycle is designed to keep you hooked, feeding you a constant stream of fear, outrage, and negativity. It's not just about informing you, it's about controlling your emotions and keeping you addicted. But here's the truth. The more news you consume, the more you rewire your brain for stress, anxiety, and even long-term mental fatigue. The news was once a way to stay informed, but now it's a 24/7 business that profits from your attention. The stories are carefully crafted to trigger emotional responses, keeping you glued to your screen and coming back for more. This is not an accident, it's a strategy. And the effects on your mind are serious. Constant exposure to negative news raises cortisol levels, the stress hormone that affects sleep, memory, and overall well-being. Over time, this can lead to chronic stress, making it harder to focus, think clearly, or feel at peace. Before we continue, take a moment to type in the comments, "I choose clarity and peace." By doing this, you set an intention to break free from negativity and reclaim control over your mental space. If you find this video valuable, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. So, how exactly does the news reshape your brain? Let's break it down. The science of news addiction. Every time you consume news, especially negative headlines, your brain reacts as if it's experiencing the danger firsthand. The amygdala, the part of your brain responsible for processing fear, lights up in response to the alarming information. This triggers your body's fight or flight response, releasing stress hormones that make you feel on edge. The problem? Most of the time, these threats are things you have no control over: wars, disasters, economic crises, political conflicts. Yet your brain treats them as immediate dangers, keeping you in a constant state of worry. This repeated cycle of stress and anxiety rewires the brain over time, making you more sensitive to fear-based stimuli. Neuroscientists have found that long-term exposure to negative media shrinks the hippocampus, the part of the brain responsible for memory and learning. That means consuming too much news doesn't just stress you out, it literally damages your ability to think clearly. The illusion of staying informed. Many people believe that watching the news is essential to staying informed. But what does being informed really mean? Does watching an hour of crisis updates truly help you, or does it just fill your mind with negativity? Most news is not actionable information. It's designed to make you feel helpless, anxious, or outraged. Think about it. Do you remember the details of the last 5 news stories you watched? Did they improve your life in any way? Chances are, they just made you feel more stressed. Meanwhile, the things that could actually improve your life, your health, relationships, personal goals, often get neglected because the news takes up so much mental space. And here's the most important point. News is not reality. It is a curated selection of events, filtered and shaped to maximize attention and emotional engagement. If you only see crime, disasters, and political conflict, you start to believe that the world is collapsing. But in reality, the world has never been safer, healthier, or more prosperous than it is today. You just won't hear that on the news because good news doesn't sell. How news outlets keep you hooked. News organizations use psychological techniques to make sure you keep watching. Here's how. Fear-based headlines, words like crisis, breaking news, and shocking truth are designed to trigger fear and curiosity, forcing you to click. Emotional manipulation. Stories are framed in a way that provokes strong emotions, anger, outrage, sadness, because emotional reactions make stories more shareable. The endless scroll effect. On social media, news never stops. There's always another update, another breaking story, keeping your brain in a constant loop of anticipation. Expert opinions that create more uncertainty. Many news reports bring in experts who speculate about future disasters, making you feel like you need to keep watching to prepare for what's next. These tactics aren't designed to help you, they're designed to trap you. The hidden cost of constant news consumption. Most people underestimate how deeply the news affects their well-being. It's not just about momentary stress, it shapes your entire mental landscape. When your brain is constantly bombarded with negativity, it starts to interpret the world through that lens. This can lead to chronic anxiety, emotional exhaustion, and even depression. Studies have shown that people who consume excessive news coverage are more likely to experience symptoms of PTSD, even if they were never directly involved in the events being reported. This is because your brain doesn't distinguish between witnessing something firsthand and seeing it through a screen. The emotional and psychological effects can be just as severe. Over time, this negativity bias leads to mental fatigue. Have you ever noticed that after watching the news you feel mentally drained? That's because your brain is using excessive cognitive energy to process all the negative stimuli. This results in difficulty concentrating on important tasks, lowered creativity and problem-solving skills, increased pessimism about the future, emotional detachment from positive experiences. The worst part? The more you watch, the more you crave it. How news triggers a dopamine cycle. Believe it or not, watching the news activates the same reward pathways in the brain as gambling or social media scrolling. This is due to the release of dopamine, the chemical associated with reward and motivation. How does this work? The news cycle is structured like a slot machine. Every time you check for updates, you get a hit of novelty. Even if the information is bad, your brain rewards you for staying engaged. This is why so many people feel compelled to keep watching, even when it makes them feel worse. The fear-reward cycle looks like this. You hear alarming news, triggers fear and stress. You seek more information. Your brain rewards this behavior. You temporarily feel informed and in control, but soon you feel helpless again. You seek even more updates, hoping for answers. This endless loop is what makes news consumption feel addictive, and news companies know this. They design their content to keep you in this cycle, ensuring you always come back for more. Breaking free. What you can do instead. If the news is so harmful, does that mean you should ignore everything happening in the world? Not necessarily. The key is to be intentional about what and how you consume. Here's how you can protect your mind without being uninformed. 1. Set boundaries for news consumption. Instead of checking the news throughout the day, limit yourself to one update per day from a trusted source. Avoid news first thing in the morning and before bed. This prevents stress from influencing your mood or sleep. Unfollow negative news accounts on social media and disable notifications that encourage doom scrolling. 2. Shift your attention to real-life actions. Instead of just consuming negative news, focus on what you can control in your immediate surroundings. Invest in learning new skills rather than obsessing over world problems you can't fix. Strengthen local relationships. Support your community instead of reacting to distant crises. Replace time spent on news with positive activities, reading, exercising, meditating, or learning. 3. Balance your perspective. For every negative news story you read, seek out a positive one. There are plenty of good things happening, you just won't find them on mainstream news. Read long-form articles and books instead of watching short, sensationalist clips. This leads to deeper understanding instead of shallow anxiety. The goal isn't to be ignorant, it's to protect your mind from manipulation and reclaim your ability to think clearly. How the news rewires your brain for fear and anxiety. If you've ever felt more anxious, irritable, or pessimistic after watching the news, you're not imagining it. News consumption literally rewires your brain. When you're exposed to constant fear-based stories, your brain's amygdala, the part responsible for processing emotions, becomes hyperactive. This leads to heightened stress levels, even when you're not watching the news. A chronic fight or flight response, making you feel on edge all the time. Reduced ability to think critically as fear overrides rational thought. The long-term impact. You start seeing danger and negativity everywhere, even in your personal life. The worst part, news outlets intentionally exploit this reaction because fear keeps you engaged. The hidden tactics news companies use to control you. Ever wonder why news stories feel so urgent and dramatic, even when they aren't? It's because media outlets use psychological manipulation to keep you watching. Here's how. 1. The breaking news illusion. The more urgent a headline seems, the more likely you are to watch. But in reality, most breaking news isn't urgent at all. It's just designed to make you feel compelled to check. 2. The negativity bias. Studies show that negative news gets more engagement than positive news. This is why violence, scandals, and disasters dominate the headlines, even though the world is not as bad as it seems. 3. Emotional manipulation stories are framed in a way that triggers anger, sadness, or fear, making them more memorable. Loaded language like outrageous, terrifying, or shocking is used to keep you emotionally involved. Knowing these tactics helps you break free from their influence. What happens when you turn off the news? Once you step away from the constant negativity, something incredible happens. Your stress levels drop, leading to better mental and physical health. You think more clearly since your brain isn't stuck in survival mode. You start focusing on what truly matters, your relationships, passions, and real-life experiences. It doesn't mean you have to be uninformed. It means you can choose how and when to engage with information. Take back control of your mind. Here's how you can start detoxing from negative news today. Turn off notifications that push alarming headlines onto your phone. Reduce screen time dedicated to news and replace it with activities that nourish your mind. Ask yourself, is this information useful, or is it just stressing me out? Curate your sources. Follow experts and long-form journalism instead of sensationalist headlines. Final thought. Choose mental clarity over fear. By making a small change in how you consume information, you take back control of your peace of mind. The world will keep moving whether you watch the news or not. So why not focus on living your best life? Take a moment to type in the comments, "I choose mental clarity." This simple act reinforces your decision to break free from negativity. If this message resonates with you, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this with someone who needs to hear it.